Hello, everyone. Welcome to Byron K. Ward presents Business Leadership with Action. And we're excited to bring you exemplary business leaders that share their life's journey with our audience. Most of these stories are from men and women of color, especially highlighting examples of business excellence from African Americans. So sit back and enjoy today's positive story of success, leadership, money, and inspiration. And you know, I'm happy today. I have an exclusive interview with Mr. Curtis N. Symonds. The timing of this interview is very fortuitous, as this is the eve of Mr. Symonds being inducted into the 30th Annual Broadcasting and Cable Hall of Fame. The event is going to be in New York City on April 14th, and also this month on April 21st and 22nd, he'll be participating in the annual Marketing Opportunities in, in Business uh, and Entertainment Symposium. And he will be joining the likes of Oprah, Bob Johnson, Tom Joyner, among others, including the biggest names in media history. More on those events later. Welcome to the show, Curtis.
Byron, it's good. It's a pleasure, man. Thank you very much for having me this today, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, what exciting time for you to join me.
Well, it's always an exciting time, man. We're getting ready to break into the spring, man. April's a good month for everyone. Start to put more of a smile on. You get out of that cold and start being able to enjoy the weather. Well, you're not in the cold. You're on the West Coast, so you're always in the sunshine. I'm on the East Coast, and it goes up and down. So we appreciate this time of the year. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's the rumor about the West Coast out here. We're having crazy weather too. But yeah, man, it's great timing to have you interview with us. You got a very exciting month coming up.
I'm really excited, Byron. It's as you mentioned in the lead in. I think that I've been in the media business 35 plus years, and to have the opportunity now to be recognized by your peers in April on April 14th with the Broadcasting Cable Hall of Fame. That's a major honor, man. And I didn't really know how big the honor was. I've kind of downplayed it. And I've had more people in the industry keep calling me and saying to me, like, how big an honor it is. And, I should be stepping up bigger and understand, the feet that I'm walking in, the shoes I'm walking, rather, in regards to this. And it's like, I do now. And it gets bigger and bigger as the day gets closer. So I really do
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, no doubt. I looked at some of the people in that Hall of Fame. It's really a who's who of media and entertainment.
It really is. I mean, I'm fortunate, man. As you were mentioning on some names to be in the likes of Oprah, Bob Johnson, Tom Joyner, and a couple other, and Byron Allen, who's now my boss. To be in that limelight, man. I mean, those icons in the business, and to be put in that kind of chair is exciting.
Yes, it's very exciting. Well, let's stick a pin in that for a minute because I usually like to start out by getting to introducing you to our audience. And let's start by having you share your youth and your upbringing with our audience.
Well, I was fortunate, Byron. I think we both grew up together in an area called Xenia, Wilberforce, Ohio, where this really small area. Everybody knew everybody. I look back at our childhood as a very special opportunity because, you know, I haven't seen too many communities as I've traveled around and have my own family now to where the closeness of from the mother and father all the way down to your friends in that community and just having that bonding, that I cherish that very strongly. And I also realized and take a lot of pride in the fact that, this was a special area. Wilberforce and Virginia was a very special area. And, I was just back there last week and visiting a lot of old spots I haven't seen in a few years. And it just brought back a lot of great memories, man, on our area and just the meaning of that community, that we were lucky to be involved in the opportunity to have some of the great friends and families that, respected and cherished you over the years. It also made you a better person. That was one of the things that I learned later on in life, is that, as parents were telling me things that I should know and should appreciate, you get a bigger appreciation as you get older and have your own kids, because then you kind of see more of the light of where they were trying to point you in, versus being a knuckle brain and say, I know that. You don't need to tell me that, blah, blah, blah. So I really do appreciate that upbringing in that community.
Well, I guess it's fair, as you've stated, to let our audience know that we are from the same town, went
Sure.
to the same college,
Hmm.
and we have very similar backgrounds. Although I will point out that that you're several years junior to me.
No problem. No problem at all. But we won't share that age thing, but I appreciate that.
All right. So, any business interest as a child?
Well, I was really, growing up in that area, I was more sports inclined, which I still am, and a mother who taught at Central State University in the physical education department, and a father who worked there in the maintenance department. When I was in school, my drive was really to be a teacher, because I just always associated myself very closely with my mother, and the way she raised a lot of young folks at Central State and kind of made them feel like they were part of the family. And she did a hell of a job over 40 years educating a lot of kids who were stumbling and bumbling with different things, from reading to writing to just trying to get through school. And she was able to help a lot of them get through school. So I felt that, I needed to be in that same vein and do the same thing. But when I came out of school in 78, I was on the track of really management. And so I ended up working for a sporting goods store in Beaver Creek, Ohio for about almost a year. And it was a family run company where I thought that was my spot. And then to come to find out, the husband and wife got divorced, but the wife was the one really carrying the note. The whole thing blew up. So then I was trying to figure out my next move. And I stumbled on cable television, and was able to hook up with a my old Cub Scout teacher, Janine Kozad, and she just gave me a shot, man. And that shot was really what I needed to really give me the boost that I needed to get in growing in the business. I ended up being general manager in Xenia, where I grew up at, which was unbelievable. And then I moved on to Chicago and went to work for ESPN for 8 years. And I was running their distribution office, affiliate marketing is what they called it, for 8 years. And I was lucky to hook up with Bob Johnson and then run the same thing in DC for BET for 14. But I had the whole country when I came to BET. I had only one area when I came to ESPN. So that really was a big education and of the business, and the fact that I learned through some great people like Janine Kozat at Continental, and then Bill Grimes at ESPN, and then Bob Johnson at BT. Those were like three people I looked on. They had a lot of play in my life, and they were very important to me as I grew up.
Yeah, well, that's you really fast forwarded there, and we want to touch a little bit on uh, particularly the time you spent at ESPN and with BT as well. So if if we can back up a little bit, I thought it
Sure.
was interesting that you've had a career in marketing. What was your bachelor's degree in?
It was in education, physical education. I came
Okay.
out with a physical education major.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of a interesting transition, although having an education background as well, it just shows how versatile that education is, because you've ended up in sales and marketing. Of course, I'm in executive search. So we both got a pretty good education,
Yeah.
sounds like.
Well, but we both were fortunate, man, that we were able to get through school, get that education, and then be able to prosper and grow, from what we learned. I think that's, I strive the kids today. I coach high school basketball on the side, and I strive the kids every day, get that piece of paper. They can take away, you can get hurt. They can take away that basketball or football or whatever sport you're in, but they can't take that paper away. At the end of the day, they can't take that paper away. So it's very, very important, that, you work on getting that paper.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we want to remind our listeners that you're listening to Byron K. Ward presents Business Leadership with Action, and our special exclusive guest, Mr. Curtis Symonds. And Curtis, let's jump back into, I think our audience will really be interested in hearing about the scope and some of your work at BET.
I was fortunate at BT. That was an opportunity that I cherish very strongly because when I came in, my role was to drive what we call distribution, which meant my job was to go out to every cable operator and get them to carry BET. And in 1988, when I came in, BT was at 18 million homes, which was on the low end of the cable industry. When I left in 2001, we were at 80 billion homes. And that was a major jump from where we started.
That
And
is tremendous.
yeah, I mean, it had a lot to do with, I was fortunate to have a staff that really, really, really believed in me and in the mission. And they worked their tails off. I don't take credit at all for it. I take credit. I put together a good team that really drove the business for us, and they understood what we needed. And we were able to take BET from a low standing brand into the business to a major standing brand, not only in the African American community, but in the business of the cable television at the time and satellite. Because by the time I left in '01, everybody wanted BET. Everybody. You didn't have to have a predominantly black area to carry BT. And I think that was the
Yes.
beauty of it, that we were able to somewhat push the stigma away that you had to have a black community in order to get BET. No, entertainment, athletics, politics, education is what we do. And people want to know from different angles, how do they do it? So the network is all about what I was able to convince cable of it. Look at the programming. Don't get caught up in the name. Look at the programming. And if you look at the programming, that's what delivers in the community. And all you want to know is that, can you get someone to buy BET in your market because of the programming? And cable operators are beginning to do it. And then when satellite world broke in with DirecTV and Dish, and we got on those big animals, then all of a sudden it really changed the game, because now the signal now is reaching rural America, and now it's getting really seen by different genres across the world. And then we were fortunate. We took the network global and went international, and we started picking up distribution all over the world and in Canada. So we were the one-stop shop of programming targeted to the African American community, and people appreciated it. And it was a lot of crossover in order to drive it.
But tell us a little bit about the international aspect. I'm sure a lot of people aren't aware of the influence and the reach of BT on an international scope.
Well, it was global. I mean, one of the major areas we went after first was Africa, South Africa, and we were able to get our network over there, and we had another network, a jazz network called Bet on Jazz, and so we were able to get those two networks over on the continent, and then it just began. It was almost like a domino effect. From that, we started spreading out, and going to other countries. And even though we didn't have the programming in foreign languages, it was mainly in English. It didn't stop people from wanting to get it, and that was the beauty of it, you know. And we just continue to grow in leaps and bounds from that.
Yeah, so from a career perspective, uh, it looks like you were fortunate to you. It seems like you did your work with a pretty broad perspective, and it was easy, or apparently easy, for you to transition into the different roles that you worked in.
Well, I always try to have in my mind, Byron, in the work environment, you got to be flexible, man. You know, I don't want anybody to pigeonhole me, you know, because that's what happens in today's world. You know, if you come in as a secretary, even though you got a BS or BA background, people say, "Oh, she's a good secretary, so she can't move out of that." You know, and so you're stuck there. So I try to be as flexible as possible and show people I can do other things than just what I'm doing. And that, I think, was one of the big things that helped me out down the road, because it didn't allow people to put me in a box. You know, it opened up more doors for me and said, well, let that guy try this. He seems that he can do this and he can do that. Why not add another thing to him? You know, and I was able to get those opportunities, which I cherish. And it was another way for me to learn more and more about the business. And I think that's what more people have to do. They got to be flexible in their businesses so that they can be able to do more and not get caught up in one area, which a lot of people get caught up in one area, unfortunately.
Right, right. Well, you certainly were able to leverage those opportunities, and while you had the outstanding career at BET, I think it was about 16 years, maybe
14. Thank you, though.
14
I
years.
like
Okay.
2 F's. I appreciate that. No, it's 14. I went from 88 to 01.
Okay. And then I think the next stop was in pro sports.
Yes. I had a great opportunity. Sheila Johnson, Bob Johnson's ex-wife now, we were out at dinner one night, and we had been taking Sheila out to dinner, me and another couple, me and my wife and another couple, rather. And at the end of the dinner, she pulls me aside and says, I think I'm buying the Washington Mystics, WNBA Washington Mystics in DC. And I just said to her, I want in. If you do it, I want in. I didn't know what that meant, but I just told her I want in because she knew my love for basketball. About 2 weeks later, she called to come in. I was out in Ohio, out in our old stomping grounds back home, and she called me about coming in for a press conference because she was announcing she was buying the Mystics. So I came in that morning for the announcement, and about a week or two later, she says, "I want to talk to you about something." I said, "Yeah, what's that?" She said, "What do you think about being the president of the Mystics?" And I was like, "What?" And I'd never run a professional basketball team or a professional sport team. So I was saying to myself, I got a lot to learn. So I had an interview with a person down in the league office, and then an interview with Ted Leonsis, which was one of the owners of the Mystics, with her. And they thought I was the right guy for the job. So, I got great opportunity again, Byron. It was a great opportunity to learn another side of business. And running a professional sports team was definitely, especially an up and coming league where, unlike the NBA, totally run opposite. NBA runs like a clock. WNBA in the early days when I was there for '05 to '07 was like, whoa, you had to find your way through the trees. There was a lot of trees there. So you had to really be pushing branches down as you're going because there wasn't a lot of direction, and so it taught me a lot, and women's sports is a great business. What's sad about it is that the GQ public just does not want to respect women's sports. I mean, I think that, and I still swear today, girls basketball is the best fundamental game that I've seen. But the fact that they can't dunk, you have a lot of high fly dunkers, you have a lot of behind the backs and all these crossovers, blah, blah, blah. They don't get the recognition like men do, nor do they get the pay. And I think it's sad because they work just as hard as men, but they're not treated the equal side at the end of the day. And I really got a
That's
real
true.
true appreciation for it running the Mystics because I saw it in living color, you
Yeah.
know. And so I really understood where these girls are coming from after a while versus where the public has built again another in the box mentality. All these girls only can do so much, or the big thing is still a big thing is the lesbian side of it. But who cares, man? As long as they're playing basketball. So I tell all my girls, look, I don't care what you do outside this locker room. What I do care is you don't carry it in my locker room, and you play your ass off when you get on the floor. And they did for me, and they did for me, and I couldn't complain.
Right.
I could not complain. I mean, they worked their ass off. And I'm real proud because when I came to the Mystics, they had never made the playoffs. Never. And in my first year, I was able to drive them to the playoffs in my first year. I only stayed 2 years. And I had a 3-year plan out, but I decided to get out after two. But I was real happy with my success with the team.
Yeah, that's a tremendous story. It's interesting you talk about the place of women's basketball. I
Yeah.
just had a recent conversation with a friend of mine, a women's coach. He coached high school women,
Hmm.
Don Montgomery, and we had that same conversation. He was
Sure.
talking about the pure element of the sport
Yeah.
that's fundamental in the women's game.
No question. I think that they have the best fundamentals out there today. And but they don't get that respect. That's a sad.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Now, before we move on from the Mystics, okay, Sheila Johnson, uh, she hired you for that role. She
Right.
was an owner with the club.
Hmm.
Now, what was her background, and how did she see the leadership potential in yourself that she selected you for that role?
Well, I think
I
she
know you
saw
can't
the way
speak for her, but
yeah, I think she saw the way I operated, Byron, with BET. She knew I was a hustler. She knew I knew how to make money, and she felt I could bring that same energy to the Mystics, which at that time kind of needed a kick in the butt to get moving. And so I
mhm,
think that's what kind of stood out with her. That I'm a high energy guy. So, and I love and my love for sports. So I think that kind of stood out for her to say, let me get this guy a chance and see what he can do. And I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for the chance because not too many guys get an opportunity to run a professional basketball team. You know,
oh,
and
especially an old college athlete,
no question,
basketball
but
player.
no question. And you walk into a situation where you didn't know anything. So
Yeah,
everything you're doing, you're playing catch up. You're getting educated every step of the way. And the one thing I got educated on was selling sponsorship drives a business, and you got to fill butts in the seats every night.
hmm,
That's all the owners care about. That's all they care about. They don't want you walking up to them saying, "Oh, I got this headache, I got that headache." No, 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 no. You sold sponsorship today. We got a game tonight. How my seating looking? You know, those are two hot elements. And
right.
so that's what you had to, as someone in my position, that's what you had to speak to almost every day, religiously.
Yeah. So was she a businesswoman in
And
her own right?
she knows her stuff. She's very good.
Uh-huh.
She's got a good mind. I mean, you know, you never got to see that much of it at BT because she really wasn't in the mix because Bob was basically the controller on at BT. But running her own operation with domestics, yeah, she was involved very closely with the business, and she did very well. She was aggressive when we first started out. She was trying to put the best product on the floor. So we talked a lot about different trades, and she signed up on them, and we made them happen. You know, so I respect her business mind because I think she and you got to give her credit. I mean, they after I left, they ended up winning a world championship. Which is great because that's a rarity. To have to win a world championship at any level. And I will never
Right.
forget
Oh, absolutely.
at any level. I will never forget what Dr. J told me in 1983 when I was still with ESPN. He said, "Listen, I think we had an All-Star game or something, and I was talking to him about how great, I mean, he was one of my idols I watched for years. And I said, how do you categorize greatness? And he said, Curtis, very simple. If you don't win a ring in the NBA, you're not great. You're a good player, but you're not great. When you win a ring, that's greatness. And I took that to heart. I tell my kids in high school basketball, you got to win that championship in order to be respected. Just winning the league is not good enough. You know, you want to win that championship. You want to win the big trophy, like
Yes.
Kansas did last night, because you can't take that back. All the people who beat Kansas during the years, oh yeah, they were all right. We beat them, but you can't take that trophy back.
Yeah.
That's something that's part of your legacy for life.
Last team standing.
Bottom line, on that, and that's the way you rock and roll. That's the way you rock and roll.
Outstanding. Well, we want to remind all of you out there that I'm Byron K. Ward, and we're here with my guest, Curtis Symonds, who will soon, on April 14th, will be inducted into the Cable and Broadcast Hall of Fame in New York City. So Curtis, let's. So you spent a couple years in pro basketball as a president, chief operating officer,
Sure.
and then what was next? You
Well,
you had some other basketball, didn't you?
yeah, it was in between actually. But whilst I was starting the new job with the Mystics, I built a gymnasium complex out in Chantilly, Virginia called Hoop Magic. It was 65,000 square feet, 70 indoor basketball courts. Because one of the things that we talked about earlier in the conversation, I always wanted to give back. And I just felt like this was my dream, which it was. The problem was for me, and I was just in a hurry, that's just how I've always been, I should have waited a little bit, and not try to put everything together at the same time. It's because I had running the Mystics on one hand and trying to run the gym on the other hand. And both hot seasons were summertime. And the sad part about it is that I put my wife in the middle of it, who just, she wanted to be a part of it, but she didn't want to be as much in it as I put her into it. And so for 2 years, she did a great job of really helping me get off the feet, but we didn't get off the ground at the gym the way I thought we could do, and we ended up, digging a hole for ourselves. So we ended up keeping the gym for like 5 years. I left the Mystics after 2 to run the gym full time, but I got into a hole with the bank. And then what happened is that it was in a time when the banks were not, it was a mid-sized bank, banks were not giving you no breaks. So we fought them off as long as we could. But I was, again, in a hurry. I signed a lot of papers I should have never signed. And before I knew it, I had the noose around my neck, and there wasn't anywhere to go. So, it was a hard lesson to learn, Byron, but it was a good lesson. Because one of the things that I learned behind it is you can't knock me down. I might get off course for a second, but you can't knock me down.
Right.
So, I got knocked down a little bit, but then I realized, hey, you know what? Everybody comes back. It's how you do it. And so I put my mind together that, I was going to continue to keep working on things I wanted to work on, and good things would happen. And fortunate for me, good things have happened, and that's what you pray on.
Well, I think that's probably every basketball player's dream is to have your own court where,
Oh
where
yeah.
you can go out there and
Oh
play
yeah.
anytime you
You
want.
got it. You
I,
got it.
I,
Right.
hey, now that's funny because I remember uh, slipping into Wilberforce University
Hmm.
gym. I said a bunch of guys just to have a
Yeah.
place to play basketball.
Yeah. No question.
That
Crawling
was
through that
before
window.
your time. I
Yep.
don't
No,
know if
I
you
remember,
guys had to do that.
before my time. Everybody was crawling through that window back in the day. In that gym. I know that very distinctly. No question.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought you might have got a little gym time since your mom was,
I
was a
did.
teacher there.
I did. I got a lot of gym time at Central State. I got a lot of gym. In fact, it's funny, man. I got a quick story for you. one of the greatest teachers at Central State was Dr. Vivian Lewis, and
Absolutely.
she was my mom's supervisor. And I'll never forget, we snuck in the gym one day, me and a bunch of buddies of mine, you know, and I had taken the crank out of the gym. That's the old days when you had to crank the rims down. I had taken the
Yes.
crank home so I could get the crank, so I could crank the rims the next day. And so I'm in there, we sneak in there, we crank the rims down, we're in there playing, and about an hour later, Dr. Lewis shows up.
Ooh, look out.
Exactamunda. Number one question: how'd you get in this gym? So of course, the only person she knew that could have possibly knew all the tricks was me. She's like, Curtis figured out a way to get in this gym, and I had left the door open so we could slide in this back door at night. And then she said, how'd you get the rims down? She said, it could only be Curtis. He must have got the crank. He knew where the crank was at. And sure enough, man, I mean, she drove me home, gave me an earful on the ride home. And I tell you, to this day, Byron, it is the best ride home I had. Didn't understand it when I was younger. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't understand it when I was younger. You know, took it personal, thought she was picking on me. But at the end of the day, as she got older and I got older, I told her one day how much I appreciated that conversation because it was all about teaching me. It was all a teaching moment.
Right.
You know, why did you have to, number one, why did you have to take that when you could have asked for it? I might have came and opened up the gym for you if you'd asked me for it.
Hmm.
You know?
So
And
she took you home.
yeah, gave me a ride home.
Wee.
I was the only one. Everybody else walked. She drove me home because she wanted me to walk up because she knew my mother worked for her. So she walked me up to the house. Of course, my mother was fuming, you know, and both of them took the shots, you
Yeah.
know. So, and you know my mother. So, you know, it was a Barbara Symonds, Vivian Lewis show, you know. But it was a great teaching moment, is all I can say. Because it really helped me understand in my early years more about the world of responsibilities and not get caught up in myself, which I was caught up in myself at that time. You
Now
know,
that's, yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead. You're all right.
No, I was going to say that's a good segue. Uh, Lessons like those, and of course, we know you're a proponent of HBCUs and
Mm-hmm.
the whole value of an HBCU education.
Sure.
In your case, uh, you went from an HBCU to really the highest levels in entertainment and sports in the country.
Yeah, I was fortunate, Byron. I just talked to another young lady. She was prepping me for an interview tomorrow, and you know, I told her if I look back at our area, man, you know where we grew up at. Would I ever thought I'd be on this kind of ride after almost 30 plus years? No, never. You know, the only thing I was trying to hope for when I got out of high school was that I made a better life for myself, but never knew I would get on this ride. And it's been an incredible journey, man. It's been really been an incredible journey. And I really I give, and this is what I'm really going to talk about when I get my award on the 8th. I really give all of that to my wife because you know, when you get married, I think we all tend to forget someone's got to sacrifice, man. Someone's got to sacrifice. And my wife has. You know, she was a teacher in Dayton, you know, and she gave up teaching to take care of my three kids. And she did a hell of a job with, along with rolling my side. You know, she had things in
Yes.
life she wanted to do. She never got a chance to do them the way she wanted to because she was too busy taking care of the house. And I think we all as men get distracted by that. We're all caught up in our egos about climbing that corporate ladder and that bullshit mentality that, you know, corporate's the way to go. Well, it's not. It's a nice thing to understand, but we're all caught up in this material thing thinking, you know, versus family. And family is the most important thing, man. And I've learned over my time. I didn't respect it as I should have at an early age, but now I have the ultimate. I try to teach it more now to my sons, because
Yeah.
we get caught up in this work thing. I gotta get it done. Gotta get it done. Well, today's world, man, no one cares. No one cares. You can be on a job 20 years, they'll still give you the pink slip. And all they'll say is,
Yeah.
Brian, well, you were a great worker, man, but we gotta change things. And you're like, well, damn. I've been with you 20 years, and now you're gonna give me a 6 month severance after 20 years,
Yeah.
and it's the best you can do. And that's where we get lost, man. In the interim, in between that, you've lost a lot of things. And one of the things
Yeah.
that, uh, I'm sorry.
I was saying absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that are three things, and this is what I'm going to talk about in my speech, Byron, is that family, faith, and value are the most important thing we all need to get a grip on, because a lot of us don't have it. A lot of us don't have. We say we do, but we don't. You know, and if you don't have the faith in the man upstairs, in yourself, in your family, how do you survive? How do you survive, Byron? I don't know anybody who can. You know,
Well,
so
well, that's solid. And that's a good segue because those values you're sharing and what uh, led you in your journey through those corporate heights. Um, can you articulate how those experiences you had as a youth, how that guided you in that corporate setting?
I think the biggest experience that I had, Byron, and I say this a lot in interviews, is that I always had a chip on my shoulder from my old days at senior high school. And I was bothered by the fact that that was my first real awakening of, the racism out there and not being treated fair. When I knew I was a better basketball player than a lot of the guys in senior high school, but they would not give me a spot because of the politics. My mother and father weren't out there, or didn't spend the money like others did to, people of color, not color, to get opportunities. And you know, it made me be a fighter inside when I told Raleigh Barton in my junior year, I said, you will never stop me from playing college basketball. I'm going to play college basketball somewhere at 5'11". And I was able to play 4 years. 2 years at a Division II school in Indiana, and 2 years at Central State. Now I'm mad at myself that I didn't try to play my whole 4 years at Central, but I was like many at the early days that we had been around Central so much, I wanted to get away from Central.
Yeah.
But when I came back and had the chance to really be part of that HBCU circle as a student and not as a kid, it was a different world. And I said, wow, I missed out 2 years. I missed out. And that's one reason why I'm so adamant on getting more kids of color and attending HBCUs, because we don't understand that experience. We're so caught up in, this TV. We're so caught up in, getting to a big school is going to make a difference. No, it's not. It's about you, Byron. It's about you. And that's what I'm preaching on the 14th. It's about you. I grew up as a PE major. I'm in 3 Hall of Fames. As a PE
Yeah.
major at a Division II NAIA school, Central State University. Okay? Nothing has
Yes,
stopped
sir.
me from growing. But what has really been a real major for me is that it's allowed me to put that chip on my shoulder to show people. As a PE major in a marketing game that I've been in, I'm the best in what I do. There's not too many people can outdo me. And people know that. And that's one of the things that I'm very proud of now. People respect that of me. They see my work, especially with BT, they see all my work. So they're like, no, this cat gets it done. And then now everybody's flipping out because they knew how long I've been working on this HBCU Go streaming service, and now I get a deal with Byron Allen, where no one can understand it. How did this guy get this deal? You know?
And we didn't even talk about that. Tell us briefly about your latest venture?
Well, I mean, back to what we were just talking about. My passion is HBCUs, and in in 2011, I think I started it with my business partner. We had a concept of trying to create something around HBCUs. We tried to first start out as a linear service like ESPN and BT and others, but it was just too costly. And I had an opportunity to get in with Comcast, and they shut the door on me. So I ended up working on a streaming service, which we have now. And I've been working for the last 11 years, trying to raise funds, trying to grow content, trying to do everything I can to really grow the network. And people had their eye on me. I didn't realize a lot of people had their eyes on me, see just what I was going to do. And fortunately, I knew Byron Allen, who is now one of the biggest black media moguls out there. And I started talking. And in October of last year, he bought my company and kept me on as president of the company. And the timing is right. The time, I just look in the mirror some days, Byron, and say, God, man, somebody was looking over my shoulder, man. Just looking over my shoulder, because the timing is right for HBCUs right now. Unfortunately, it falls on the heels of a very bad murder of George Floyd, that now people feel they got to do more in the black community. But it's something that's been needed for years and had to get a wake-up call. And that was the wake-up call, George Floyd. So now with my network, we are working strongly on providing educational programming, lifestyle programming, definitely sports programming, and anything we see targeted to this HBCU circuit. But really more than less on it is educating our people on the history, the value, and the legacy of HBCUs. Because that's the lost art right now, Byron. That's the lost art. A lot of these kids weren't around at the time. They don't understand it. When you talk to them, it's like, oh, you give me a history lesson, Coach Symonds. No, I'm not giving you a history lesson. I'm trying to educate you on what the next step should be. And I tell people all the time, if you're trying to get to the next level, if you're good, they'll find you.
Yeah,
Bottom
well,
line.
they should be listening to a Hall of Famer, no
I appreciate
no doubt.
appreciate that, Byron. I appreciate that very much, man. And that's a nice stamp to have. My buddy Bobby Dandridge, who played, went to Norfolk, just came in and got in the Hall of Fame, NBA Hall of Fame. He had the greatest line in his opening that I really cherish. He said, "You know what? People thought I was going to be upset after 30-some years of not getting into the Hall of Fame, but God had a plan for me, so I was willing to sit back and wait because I knew I was coming. It was just
Yeah.
when." And
Yes.
I feel the same way about it. I mean, I saw people getting into the Broadcast Hall of Fame that couldn't even touch my shoes. But I understand the game. So I just waited, and fortunately enough, my time has been called. And I'm thankful I'm still alive to receive it. That's
Yes.
the
It's
beauty
a
of it.
blessing.
That's the beauty of it. So it gives me the energy to go out there on the 14th and really let people know why this thing happened to Curtis Simons and what it meant to him. I mean, I think that's the message I'm gonna try to deliver.
Yeah, and that's outstanding. And ladies and gentlemen, as he mentioned, he's Curtis Symonds, and I'm Byron K. Ward, and you're listening to and watching Business Leadership with Action. So Curtis has shared with us he will be inducted into the 30th Annual Broadcasting and Cable Hall of Fame event in New York City on April 14th. But there's also you have another event coming up on April 30th that
Yeah.
you've been a big part of, and it's also the 30th annual meeting, and that's MOBI, which stands for Marketing Opportunities in Business and Entertainment.
Yes, and very proud of Moby. As you just said, Byron, it stands for Marketing Opportunities in Business and Entertainment. It's been an organization that's been around, like you said, 30 years. It was founded by Yvette and Kofi Boyo in '92. And it was really all about trying to bring top Black executives to be able to connect with corporate executives to build partnerships. And when I first came to BT, all I heard was that you need to hook up with Moby. You need to hook up with Moby because that's the place to make your connections and really help build the brand of BET. And sure enough, when I went to the first conference, I was overly impressed with the amount of contacts that were there in regards to it. And so I stayed very close to it with Yvette and Kofi. And then when I left BT, it actually kind of went BT Moby went down, and Yvette and Kofi kind of they ended up getting divorced, so everything went on hold for a minute. And I decided I went to Yvette years ago and said, why don't we bring Moby back and really energize the community on what Moby's all about. So we hooked up with Bernard Bronner from the Bronner Brothers, and we tied in with the show on a Friday, and was able to create our first comeback show that we launched. And I think it was 2017. Went very well. And then what we did from there, we ended up, one of the speakers that day was Dorinda Walker, who was Senior Vice President of Marketing for Prudential, and she loved our concept. So she ended up um, creating a opportunity to where Moby was able to do our meetings out of her corporate office for the next 2 years, which was incredible. And so we really grew from that and had a great, great conferences. We were averaging about 300 people plus. And then what we wanted to do from there was I kept preaching to them right before the pandemic that we should do it at a HBCU school because it'd be great to try to get the colleges involved with
Students, yeah.
the students in the whole 9 yards. And so we had planned to do it at Howard, then the pandemic hit, and we put it on hold, and we created these Moby Mondays so that we would have some energy and the branding would be there. But the key was really trying to really educate people again on the business. So this year we're doing it all virtual, and we've got a tremendous amount of good speakers this year that I think is going to be, right where we need to be. So we really want to try to get out a lot of the students. We've got different. We got a panel on Thursday that's really going to be more for teachers and education. We got some great speakers on that. On Friday, I think the iceberg is Byron and I are doing the fireside chat with Yvette. I think that's going to be hot because a lot of people want to know what Byron's going to say. We're going to earlier panel on, we have people who graduated from HBCUs. We'll talk about how they grew their business and what HBCU meant to them. And then we have another panel that talks about what are you doing in corporate America for HBCUs. And then we got a few other speakers like BK Fulton, who's created his own business, SoFi, and then got a play out there, Barley Play, and got a few movies. So there's a lot of good conversation that people should tie into on that date and learn from it. The goal is to connect with somebody. We're gonna have ways in which we're gonna do everything through a link called Hoppin', which they can create rooms where people can talk just like you're in person, and you can have some communication. So I would encourage everyone to go to mobysymposium.com, look at our website, and there's a registration page right there when you come in. Hit the registration and come join us. It's going to be a fun day.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And
No problem.
you taking us on a fantastic journey of your life today.
Thank you.
So as we come to the end of this journey, what's next for Curtis Symonds?
There's not a lot left in the tank, Byron. I'm 66 now, man, and I'm cranking out, man. My goal is to try to get this HBCU Go channel really hopping. And then I put by that time, that's almost 40 years in the business, man. It's time. It's time. I'm not trying to burn myself out, brother. I've seen it. I lived it, been around it. I'm going to enjoy life. Like I said, I'm 66. I'm living every day like it's my last because I got a lot of people falling down around me, and I'm just going to enjoy it, man. And when the man upstairs says, "Hey, man, it's time that you need to, you need to calm down and sit back. Let somebody else do this hustle." I think
Right.
that's my time, and that's where I owe that back to my wife again. I mean, like I say, she has been the thunderbolt of this household, and it's time for her and I to enjoy life. She's had a lot of things planned that we haven't done because of me, and I owe it to her that I need to flip the script and follow her instead of her following me. So
That
I am all about that, man, and that's my next step.
that's outstanding. And of course you you look healthy,
Thank
you're
you,
wealthy
man.
and wise.
Thank you, man. I don't know about that wealthy tip. I like it. I'm living, enjoying life, but I appreciate it. I try to stay a little wise.
Well, this journey you've shared with us, undoubtedly, as a Hall of Famer, you have been an example to a lot of people, and uh, folks that own networks and are presidents of basketball teams and has attained those kind of levels
Yeah,
are certainly persons that we want to share their stories with our communities, particularly our communities of color.
no problem. Well, I think you're doing a wonderful thing, brother. Getting it out there and having your show on leadership and everything. And I think got to people like you, we got to continue to support. So anyway, I can help out down the road, continue to hit me up and see what I can do.
Absolutely, and same on my end. If there's anything I can do to support your projects or any ventures or efforts, don't hesitate to reach out.
Good.
I'm truly humbled and very much appreciate the time you've spent with us today. And I want to remind everyone that Byron K. Ward presents Business Leadership with Action is produced and underwritten by Action Human Technologies, LLC. Our program is broadcast live and pre-recorded from the studios for our live shows of 99.3 FM KJBU in Oxnard, California. And we typically air our live show at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And we also stream live on 99.3fm.com. And our shows are available on demand for audio at 99threefm.com and on video at byronkward.com and on YouTube at Byron K. Ward. We're also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, Byron K. Ward. And we thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to bringing you another leader and exemplary figure from the business world in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you, Byron.